All right, before the break, we took a look at visual scripting and Unity. That is kind of an industry standard because that's what artists are trained for. Humans are a very visual species. And in general, we'll see both traditional text-based code and no-code, low-code solutions all across software development. Both have advantages and disadvantages. The tool exists. Definitely worth taking a look at. You don't have to remember keywords because you're choosing them from a list. That's another big advantage of the visual scripting stuff. But that wasn't the only thing I wanted to look at today. Because I talked about it at one point, and then I decided not to do that here. But in last week's discussion board, there was a few posts back and forth going on about VR systems, which mine is probably completely drained because I forgot to charge it last week. And if you have, for those who didn't know, the power button is an accelerometer. So movement does this, and I carry it around in my backpack. So after 2 weeks, I'm quite certain the battery is run down now. But we would make the VR games basic in Unity the same way we know it. Oh, the light came on. It might be working. Might be able to sideload that. There's only a couple of differences. One, everything's first person, right? It wouldn't make any sense to do to your VR from a third person view or a side view or anything. We're fully engulfed. And then the other thing is on the controller here, which maybe I can turn on the camera here. I'll turn on the close camera. On the controller here, we have normal controller buttons on top, couple outset joysticks, 3 buttons, and then just a touchpad that detects motion and things like that. But normal controllers there, the normal clicks there, but our controllers also have these internal buttons, which are used for grabbing things. So in VR, we also have that. So we have extra features we need on our controllers, and then the first person stuff. But in general, it's like normal 3D game development. Once we configure things, and like y'all are quite used to from programming, there's a lot of pre-ready stuff, right? This is a software development class. This isn't a computer science class. We're not researching improvements or those subtle things to make it better, digging way deep in there. We're just going with what works. The difference between software development and computer science. We're not looking for what would make it. We're not going to spend a bunch of time researching and establish solid experiments to determine what's going to make our game 3 nanoseconds faster. We're just going to find we're just going to make a game the way we're just going to use stuff and make a game that works. And since VR was mentioned, I thought I would go ahead and at least show you the configuration, because the difference is we need to import those libraries. I don't have to do it from memory. I have the notes from when I showed this to the high schoolers. Because sometimes I was going to have to, for a second, I suddenly thought I was going to have to do come up with a GitHub repository from memory from like several months ago. Obviously, virtual reality is going to be 3D. We can make 2Ds. If you haven't used the new setup, it's an Android system. It does the same things as your phone. Anything you run on your phone, you can run on the new VR systems. And Apple's is coming out soon, so anything you do on an iPhone is going to run it. It's just another shape for. So like this one's another shape for an Android phone. Or when Apple's comes out, I think January, right? You might have seen articles on that or anything. I'm thinking it's January because it's just struck me as really, really odd that it comes out right after Christmas. That's what I thought. I was like, why did they do that after Christmas? That's seems odd, but it'll basically just be a different shape for an iPhone, and then we also have that other functionality that we're fully immersed. It's kind of nice for business settings sometimes too, right? You got a bunch of stuff that you can't be distracted from. Put on your VR settings, voice canceling headphones, and nobody's going to pull you away from that spreadsheet that's got to be finished. The only way they can get your attention is to physically grab and shake you. Otherwise, you can't hear them, can't see them, any of that stuff. So, useful advantages. Might have been useful a couple years ago whenever everything shut down and there'd be like a house full of kids that all had to do Zoom call classrooms at the same time. And most people's houses don't have spots where their kids could just go isolate from each other, as well as the parents that also had to work on Zoom at the same time. So there's other advantages like that. This is a game dev class, so we program the stuff for VR in Unity. So I've created a new 3D project. Anything in my notes while this pulls up? It helps to side load them. So one thing about VR headsets, the reason ones still have to be bulky and we can't just use normal glasses is there's two eyepieces in there and both eyepieces have their own GPU. So very, very graphics intensive. And if you have a really nice gaming computer, really powerful computer, you might be able to run the Unity stuff, just plug up a wire and every time you hit test, it'll work fine. But whenever you do that, it turns off the built-in 2 GPUs. So you have to have a computer that's powerful enough to run itself and 2 more GPUs. Most people's computers can't do that. So it has to be side loaded. And if you're on a Mac or a Linux system, you have to side load it anyway. So you just want to set it up for side loading, which isn't hard, just like side loading on any Android device. Go to your account, make sure you have a developer account, which is what you have to have in order to sell stuff or put ads on stuff and make money with it anyway. And then the device will be ready to side load stuff, and then some app on your PC, or I use one on the phone called Bug Jaeger. It's German word, so with a J. I'll read it out. Bug Jaeger, and that allows for, it's actually for network control, but one of the things is it side loads onto an Android device. On the VR stuff, I also use something called CX File Explorer. It's a very, very useful debugging tool. I think a lot of y'all have to take a mobile app development course anyway. This isn't available on the Play Store because, well, like the name implies, it's a file explorer, but it also has an installer built in. So all you have to do is put your package, your Android package in that file explorer, and when you double click it, it'll automatically install it. So they kept that off the Play Store because people that don't know what they're doing could very easily damage their devices. It's a developer tool, and like a lot of other developer tools, there's a site called APK Pure. So that's our Android package, apkpure.com. That has a lot of those Android applications that are kind of developer only. We don't want them, and a lot of other applications. It's a general store, but it has the developer ones that Google thinks the average user probably shouldn't have access to. Like, let's save this for computer experts. But that's what I use to side load stuff. And then all you have to do is copy the file over, and when you open it on the headset, it automatically runs. I just wanted to quickly look at configurations. Not really expecting y'all to have this all the way finished, just so you'll see them. And then maybe if you need to do that at some point in the future, you'll remember this lecture was recorded, or everything will seem familiar when you start looking. So we need to set things up, and if we go to project, the project settings, so under edit and project settings, where we'd already looked at. All the way down at the bottom on the left, you'll see XR plugin management. That's X is in cross, so augmented reality and virtual reality. So that has all the libraries for both of those. If you want like simple glasses with HUDs in them, or versus the big hefty system with 2 GPUs in them, but we can't see through 2 GPUs. We can only see what the GPUs send us. And when you click that in project management, there's a button right there to install it. And then you'll just, so once that's installed, you choose your system. So Windows and server is the only thing turned on here. It's a bit of a problem because, well, everything on that list is an Android device. Apple's is coming out in January, and until then, the Samsung one, the first started to back up, then the Oculus, which eventually became Meta, but all that really is Meta paid them a bunch of money to put the logo on the device. Nothing changed from when it was Oculus. So you'll see it labeled both ways still. And if you see the word Meta there, that just means somebody got a big check to label something that already existed. The Valve or Steam setup, I think that's the big ones. The big three, those are all set up as Android devices. So we need to have an Android device. We need to be able to build this game for an Android device. So real quick, if we go to File and Build Settings, well, it's only set for the Windows or a server. Probably want to turn Android on. Probably want to turn HTML on too. Seems silly to make a game and not put it on the web these days. But for our purposes, we want to turn Android on, and you notice it's grayed out, but if I click on it, there's an install button right there. So it'll go ahead and set all this up. Android build support, OpenJDK, Android SDK, so we need all those things. It's kind of all set up, so just hit continue. Agree to those. Which if you want to build devices for games for an Android device, you don't have to do this anyway. A similar thing, which hopefully won't take too long to install. That progress bar is one of the fake progress bars. It just shows something happening. Or at least that's the impression I got last time. So while that happens, I'll go back over and do some more settings. You go to edit and project settings. What we really want is open XR. So they started, everybody was making their own individual thing, but they were all making Android devices. So it did not take long before somebody came up with the idea that like, hey, why don't we just make it in open source? Why don't we just make some open source code that covers everybody's devices, so then all of them are compatible with that open XR library. So we wanted the open XR, and when we click this, more stuff's going to download. How's that? Hang on, Unity Hub. That might take a few minutes. Hopefully it'll be done. That was the big button, is just show that it's there. A whole bunch of waiting because it has to download things and make adjustments. Okay. Shouldn't take too long here. I think it's just one screen on this one. Put a bunch of waiting, and once this is on, that Android build you only have to do once. Your Unity editor will remember that you did that. So that's there every time. You only have to do that once. I probably should have done that beforehand. So I got the normal little pop-up of, do you want to allow it to make changes? Yes. Where should we look at? This one. And then this message popped up. It looks a little alarming. So what it was is when they first started the latest round of VR stuff, initially it kind of lost the novelty effect quickly because it made everybody motion sick. So it fizzled out, and then a few years later, somebody came up with the idea of trying teleportation, which took care of the motion sickness. So then it started making a comeback because that total immersion is really, really nice. Some people like the total immersion, some people really dislike it. Whichever way, it got a lot more popular now than it did first. And the earlier versions are not compatible with that OpenXR library. So if you use version 1, that was when somebody first started trying to make it, and then everybody else that was doing VR stuff was like, hey, that's a nice library, but we need to do this and this and this and this. And after they went through that checklist, it wasn't compatible with version 1 anymore. So this message is saying that it's not compatible and it will break any games you have written in version 1. But you'll probably don't have any games written in version 1 of the OpenXR library. So just hit yes. You did yes to restart it, and you made your backups. There's a couple messages there. The important one though is that it will, if you did anything with version 1 of OpenXR, it's not compatible. So messages to saying make sure you make a backup first. That one's on 4 of 9. The last 3 go quickly. So Android will hopefully be available soon, and might have to restart one more time when they're said that Android was in there, but I think it'll just run. It's been a minute since I added a build. I usually have lots of them on, or at least the basic ones, right? A PC and Android and a website. The 3 main places we want to put a game. iPhone probably be on there too. But there's a lot of stuff built in Unity like that, which that's what we have to wait for, is all that functionality that's built in, because it is waiting for a few seconds for things to compile is way less time than if we were trying to do that ourselves. Really, some of the world's best programmers already wrote great big massive libraries to handle that for us. It would take us a very long time to do that manually. And it would be kind of silly because it's already been done. No need to rewrite the code if the code already exists. We do that a lot in classrooms for learning purposes, because classrooms are under tight time constraints. So anything we do in a classroom also has to be specifically designed or chosen to fit in those time constraints. And when this opens back up, you'll see there's this little yellow message here. I can scroll down a little further in the project to see OpenXR. And there's also an error or a warning that popped up here. Let's deal with the warning. At least one interaction profile must be added. So we have to set our profile. And right next to that warning, they conveniently gave us an edit button. So we'll hit that. And on the OpenXR tab, oh, well, looks like Android finished. I see the tab there now. On the OpenXR tab, you'll see this list of interaction profiles. And I have an Oculus device here, so notice it's the controllers. It doesn't know which controllers you use. So I'll add that. It doesn't necessarily hurt to add all of them. And I have the Quest 2, so I'll go ahead and add the eye gaze, because it also tracks which direction my eyes are rolling, not just the whole device. So at least those 2, but it doesn't hurt to add all of them, because it will just ignore the ones it doesn't need. And then you can build your game for multiple systems. And same thing over on the Android tab, there's interaction profiles, and we need the eye gaze and the Oculus Touch. So as long as yours tracks the eyes, but again, you just turn on everything there. It'll ignore the ones it doesn't need. So there's our profiles. And notice over back here, turn on the OpenXR library. That Android tab showed up now, so we can build stuff for Android. If I click OpenXR, notice that it grayed out the Oculus. I have an Oculus sitting here, but the batteries are probably dead on it for one. But it's also it uses the open source library. They just haven't removed their stuff yet. Anything else on this? Okay, so that sets our settings. So you go to project settings. Probably want to install an Android build anyway. Might want to do that. Might just want to go ahead and do that anyway in the website build and the iPhone build, and go ahead and put those in Unity as you start playing around with things. Go to the XR plugin management, and on your PC, choose OpenXR, and on your Android, choose OpenXR. And on the OpenXR tab that adds after you choose one of those, make sure you set your profiles to the correct controller and the eye gaze if you have it. So a bunch of configuration stuff. No more issues, so I can close this. And we do need to download something, some preset stuff. Right now, the settings are there, but we would have to build every single thing from scratch. And that's a lot. So luckily they're built for us already. If we go to Windows and Package Manager, we've been there a few times, right? The place where we go get more stuff that's not already here. And on the plus sign up at the top, well, we saw a bunch of things here. We can check the Unity registry, everything Unity knows about, the assets we've downloaded, the things built in, or there's a plus sign right next to it that if we want something that's not on that short list. It's like that's the most common places, but there's also a plus sign that we can get it from somewhere else, such as a Git repository. So at least for the time being, and I haven't heard an expected date of when they're going to move that from the Git repository over to the asset store, but I assume when they feel it's thoroughly debugged. They don't want to do that if there's any bugs in there at all. So right now we have to grab it from the Git repository, but it's been a long time since anything has shown up on the issues tab on that GitHub. But they had like a year and a half long time, maybe 2 years. It's been a long time since they found a bug, but for some reason they haven't chose to move it to the asset store yet. And we have to type in this address, which hopefully makes sense when you see it. It's com.unity. Has anybody seen package names like that? I know Nolan, we were talking about that last night. Sometimes we need unique things, like unique folders to put all our stuff in. And one thing we know is always unique is a web address. So unity.com, that we know that's unique. So if we turn that around backwards, we still have something unique. And do our first folder as com, and in that we put a folder called Unity, and then we have a unique file path to start off with. So you'll see those a lot if you haven't. And then there's another one, so .xr. Oh, it's a file path, but we're using it in code. So we don't want the slashes, we want the dots, like object-oriented programming. We are actually programming this now. So instead of slashes, we want to make sure we put the dots. So like an import line or include or using or whatever the import is, bring another library in for our, the language we're working in. So .xr, so that should all make sense. And interaction .toolkit. So com.unity.xr.interaction.toolkit. Hopefully everything there and the name makes sense. And when we add, it's going to go grab that from GitHub. Or from a Git, not GitHub. Unity has their own Git. Git is a command that we put into terminals. The repository is named after the command prompt instruction. So definitely not the only one. It's going to go grab it from Unity's repository. Oh, this is the message I thought I saw earlier. Yeah, this is the one that it's not compatible. So make sure you have a backup. Yeah, I made a backup. made a backup of all that non-existent stuff. So that's in there, and notice there's this section here called samples. This makes things a whole lot easier. If you go ahead and download starter assets, import those. As games get big, the other stuff is useful as well, but it would take long explanations on what those are, but if you head down this pathway, you will recognize all of those for you. All right, so that's imported. Enclosed package manager. And notice that the project already went to assets, samples, XR interaction toolkit, version 2.2. So if we go in that folder, here's all our pre-built things, the things that take a while to build, a bunch of game components. The thing is, they're just not activated. They're in the file explorer, but they're not included in the engine yet. So when we click on them, you'll see there's an add button, and look at that name. Action-based continuous move provider. They're all named like that. There is no ambiguity. You don't have to try to memorize which one's which. It's like an essay written in that variable name. No ambiguity, but we do need to hit the add button for each one. And you cannot select all of them and hit add once. You have to click them one at a time and click add. The icons that look like a little mixing board. Just click on those and hit add. And move zoom thumbnails out of the way if they're in your way. And keep adding all of those. Grab, move, provider, or action-based snap turn provider. So you can see they completely spelled out what they are. So there's no ambiguity in them. Now that we have those, let's see what I remember. After importing those assets, or if you just if you like to do things the brutal way after building them yourself, there's something else we need to do in the project and project settings. So go back to edit and project settings, and zoom thumbnails out of the way again. And under preset manager, so we'll go to preset manager, and you notice it already detected all of those. We already said use the OpenXR library. So as soon as there was some XR interactive toolkits, when we hit that add button, automatically loaded them into the preset, except for one thing. And you can kind of you can probably figure it out by looking at this. So like this one has one input, this one has one input, this one has two inputs, this one has one input, this one has two things, this one has one thing. You can probably figure out pretty quick that one of those is for the headset. The single ones are for the headsets, and the ones that have two are for the controllers. Just from the numbers, right? That's our input output for the game. One of them there's only one of, and the other one there's two of. And on the controllers, we do need a word over here, because this default right controller was not written in the pre-made scripts. In the pre-made scripts, they have right with a lowercase r. So we need to add the words right and left. And obviously add it. We can see right and left in the full name of the stuff. That's the class, but where that class is used, it's generated with the words right and left. So we don't have to type all of that every single time. And there should be two boxes where we need that. On the action based, that's regular clicks. That's the normal joystick controllers we would have. And then the grab based. Right and left. Yep. And that's all the settings. Once that's there, We can start adding stuff to the game. That's the big one, just all those settings. There's quite a bit there. I guess there's one more thing. If we come over here and notice right clicking in the hierarchy, we have a new menu here. If you, you may have not paid attention to notice it's a new menu, but there's a bunch of things for XR, and we just set up the X as in cross, so AR and VR. If you want augmented reality or virtual reality. The difference is the augmented reality is one you can see through, like Pokemon Go. It just adds stuff to an existing camera or puts things on glasses that you can normally see through. Whereas virtual reality is fully immersion, full world. You have to shut the world down and turn on an external camera if you want to see the world around you. And here's all the components we would need to base things up. Interactors, interactable. Interactors are hand, that's what we're interacting with. And an interactable is the thing in the game we can grab. So like a sphere for a bowling ball would be interactable, and our right hand controller is an interactor that can grab the ball. And we can build up stuff, canvas and mid systems that might look familiar from UIs. And then there's two XR origins. This is basically our player. We would build it up from this. But notice there's the regular one, and then there's one with something in parentheses. Right now it says XR, and they're having trouble deciding what to put in those parentheses to make it clear. So basically on every one of the last 4 versions of Unity, and probably for the next couple, what is in those parentheses keeps changing. But it's going to say XR origin, and it will have parentheses next to it. It's just what the word that is in those parentheses, they're still debating on what word should go there. So click on the one with parentheses, and it creates this XR origin. Let's look at it 000, some sort of play object. And if I expand that, you'll notice a few things. Has a camera offset, which by default, if I click on that camera offset, is 1.111. Yeah, that number in meters above the ground. So that's what we want for our eyes, right? We want to offset our camera and say that's actually less than the average. I Googled that because I was like, that seems short. What was it? 1.5 something, almost around to 1.6 meters is the average human height. And then we back off, 20 centimeters to get to the eyes. So that number seems a little low to me, but I usually just go with it and things look okay. Maybe it would help if I put a plane on here. So I'm going to add a 3D object and a plane, which would be like our ground. Under assets, create a material. Make that material green or something. And then apply that to the plane so that it's not that strange no color. Expand. There we go. Turn it green, and you can see that camera is sitting above the ground. So it just offsets it to about where the player's eyes would be. There's a left-hand controller, which has absolutely nothing with it, and a right-hand controller. So I also like to maybe right-click on those and create a new 3D object, maybe a cube for the left hand. Make sure it's set 0, 0, 0 relative to the left hand. Scale it down, maybe 0.2. Nice and small, like where the left hand would be, and same thing for the right hand. I'll put a sphere there. 3D object, it's a sphere, and scale it down to 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. And right now they look at arbitrary spots, but when we run the game, they'll move to where that motion thing is. But you can see, kind of see that this stuff is positioned like a human. We have where our controllers should be started out with, and they're not locked in place because the controllers are based on where you hold controllers. So it's not locked in place when we set up the game, but the camera is to give us the right height. And then the other thing we would want to do, notice how we have an interactor here. There's a ray interactor that shows the sign, XR interactor, line visual. That's what goes on our hands, the interactor, things we can grab with. So we could add to the right hand, if we search for interactor, a direct interactor or a yeah, we could add other interactors. We already have some built into these presets. The interactors go in our hands, so like a grab interactor, which I think is actually already built into that one somewhere, because they have several interactors there. We can put more than one interactor on each hand. We have lots of buttons on the controllers. And if we put something in here, like maybe just throw in a sphere and bring that over to the side, like we're going to make a bowling game eventually, we're going to wrap up here pretty quick. When we add a component to that, we would put an interactive bowl. So we would make this like a grab interactive bowl, and then it would work like a bowling game. A bowling ball where we could reach out and get the grab button on our controller and actually grab a hold of that item and move it around. And along with that, we also have put it on a cube. I didn't want to spend a lot of time with this because we can't really preview it. I only have one headset. Earlier this semester, the Bloomington campus loaned us their VR headsets, but I thought I wasn't going to include this, so I sent those back after Bloomington, after that day with the high schoolers. Along with the grab interactable, you'll see there's a simple interactable, and at the bottom, so with that cube highlighted, it has the simple interactable. If I scan this list, interactable events, there's like hover, and hover is point at. It's not like the mouse hover where we have a cursor. Sometimes in VR stuff, there's like an actual ray going out, like a laser pointer, to show what we're pointing at. Other times we just have to keep track of where we're pointing. So that's a hover event, or a select is clicking on it. So that's our normal joystick interactions. Hover and click. And then the grab interactable just has a bunch of settings, and the default ones are good for reaching out and using your default grab controller and grabbing whatever object it is. But we also have events here as well. We also have the hover and select on grab as well. But that's how we set it up. That's the two differences. So you need those interactables on all your objects, and then all those configurations, and then that XR origin object. And after that, everything is exactly the same as the rest of 3D game development. Then, well, you build it when you build it, go to build settings. It needs built for Android. There are two things we should really change here. By default, it's set to be generic, let the machine figure it out. But we're humans, we're intelligent, and y'all might not know the number, but we do know what VR systems use. So it's not just anything compatible on Android. VR will always use ASTC texturing. So if we switch that to ASTC, and then down here, the max texture size, we do know that those two GPUs are on what's become the standard VR systems max out at 2048. So ASTC texture size with, and don't worry about the compression, with a max texture of 248, we'll get a better results if we go ahead and set that, because we know that's what all the VR systems use. And then the computer doesn't have to figure out which one we need. When you're ready to sell it on the Play Store, you would want to click this. That comes with all the stuff for the signatures and the whole bundle to sell on the Play Store. But for testing it, we just need to set what device it is and choose all compatible devices. If your headset's plugged up, you'll see it on the list, but I found it's best not to click the one on the list and just always go with all compatible. And then you hit switch platform, and everything has to recompile, because up to this point, it was making it for Windows. So I'm running it on Windows. Wait for Unity to recompile all the stuff in the background, and then we'll be able to build it. And the first build takes forever. And what I always like to do, just it helps speed it up a lot, but it still takes a long time, is go run it once here. We can't preview it because we're looking at a PC and it's building it for an Android device, two completely different machines. So we aren't going to see anything when it runs, but it will go ahead and compile everything. It will force all the compilers to run. Oh, I guess we can see stuff. So that's what it will look like with the headset. But now, if we go to File and Build Settings, we can go ahead and build that. And I'll put that over in Delete. What is this? Class example. Oh. Where do I have errors? Oh, after restart Unity, I will go ahead and do that after class. I'll restart Unity, and then once you hit that build button, you get the APK file. But I didn't restart Unity when Android finished, so it wasn't fully there. But that was the points I wanted to talk about today. I will build this after class, actually probably this evening, because the light went off. Because my headset is dead. The batteries on the headset have died. So I will build this and load it onto the headset and make a video so you can see what this is. I'll do that later this evening after the 6 o'clock class. And then I'll send out the video so you can see what the result of this is. Basically, you saw we're looking ahead, and we can look around and see different things. And then the controllers will have rays shooting out of them, red rays by default. I'll send out a video for that, but I was doing stuff while it was adding the Android build, so I have to restart Unity, and that would be a bunch of time for something that we talked about all the points I wanted to talk about on that. So you can see it's a lot of configuration, and then it's normal. Everything past that is normal 3D game development. And make sure you restart Unity if you add new build options, because doesn't quite work so well in the middle of something. But I will send out a video of what that looks like after I charge my headset this evening. Does anybody have any questions about that? I would recommend clicking around on that visual scripting tool we saw before the break when you get a chance. If you have a VR headset, you can do that. My YouTube channel also goes all the way to a bowling game. If you have a VR headset and want to try that, send me an email and I'll send you the link to the practice run from when I was getting ready for the demonstration for the high schoolers a few weeks ago. But otherwise, that leaves us just under 2 hours of class time. As normal, for this 2 hours, I'm pretty much just gonna sit here and wait for questions to come my way. We're sitting in the office grading. Might run across the street to Taco Bell, but I'll be nearby. Text messages and Ivy Learn messages are the two things that make noise on my phone. The quickest way to get a hold of me. My schedule for the weekend, I always leave the last weekend of a semester completely open so that I can sit there and finish up grading as stuff comes in and be ready to answer questions immediately. So if you have any questions other than class tonight and then the normal schedule stuff tomorrow, I'm pretty much sitting around waiting to answer questions and offer help until that final deadline. Please remember, get everything to me by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. I'll probably send out a reminder about that every weekend. Otherwise, that was it for today. I will see you all. Actually, that's it for the semester, isn't it? Y'all have a great break. Exhausting semester. Enjoy your 3 weeks off. I will see you in the halls or something in the future. Thanks for making